Sorry to confuse everybody again, but here we are with another Game of Thrones themed stream for a UEFA podcast. You've got Udinese and you've got Fred Achilles, otherwise known as Hercules, otherwise known as the King of the Spaniards. I've lost track of how many names you have at this point, Fred.
They just keep accumulating. It's great. I love it.
I mean, this is a tradition that goes all the way back to D96, where I think you went by about 17 different names there.
I picked a different team name every season. So one for, I think it lasted 5 years.
Yeah, but I think you had all of us trying to figure out, okay, what the hell is Fred's real name at the end of this? Is it Fred? Is it Fred Travis? Is it Travis Schumacher? Like, what the hell's going on here? So, anyways, congratulations on accumulating some more names. But, now we're talking about a division that hasn't really earned a name for itself the last couple of years, and that's Serie A.
Nice transition.
Well, I do this once or twice. So last time we got together, we talked about the La Liga, which is a much stronger league in the last couple of years than Serie A. Serie A, I think, had about 3 or 4 teams actively rebuilding last year. What happens when you have rebuilders? At some point, you get to be good again. Well, hopefully, fingers crossed, if you know what you're doing. And unfortunately, since I'm in Serie A, that seems to be happening. So this is a really fun league to try and rank right now. I think we've got a pretty clear couple of tiers here. I think everyone kind of had 4 or 5 tiers pretty common between each of our rankings. And I think we had, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 different people who submitted ranks for this. So it should be a pretty diverse group. We'll go from the bottom to the top like we did, and we'll do the same kind of stats as last time. And again, we'll see who's kind of the preseason favorite and cursed, therefore, to lose and have nothing but bad things happen to them.
That seems to be the way this goes.
Yeah, it is tradition. All right, well, it doesn't look like we have any viewers yet. Maybe that'll change as we get going here. But we'll get started here with the 12th ranked team. There were a couple people who were believers in this team, but realistically, the composite rank was 11.5. So most everybody had them either last or second to last. And that's Parma Calcio. If I recall correctly, this was actually this has a fun little joke with it. I think in FIFA 2019, because of penalties against Juventus, they couldn't make money against their name. So they basically rebranded Juventus as Parma Calcio in FIFA. So all of a sudden, Parma Calcio is an unbeatable force in FIFA. It's like, who the hell is this team? And you look at it, it's like, oh, it's Juventus. No shit, they're kicking everyone's ass. But then, someone seems to have picked up on the joke and named their team after it here. So now Juventus can be in FIFA again. They're a different team that we'll talk about later. But we've got Parma Calcio and definitely struggling after losing the Juventus swag that goes with them.
Wow, that's a story that I had no idea was happening. So what you're telling me is that this is an imposter, or one of them is an imposter?
I'll have to. It's too bad I don't have either Eric or any of the FIFA players on the pod with me to make sure I'm not pulling this completely out of my ass. But it was Parma. I want to say Parma something that was the stand-in for Juventus for the year that they couldn't actually make any money off their name or their brand. But yeah, it's an imposter, and it's not an imposter team because it's a real team, but it's what's the best way to say this? It needs to make some moves.
Well, I want to say that he's setting himself up for that kind of season where he's going to just take it on the chin and move forward. Hopefully, I haven't checked. Are there at least a lot of draft picks here?
I haven't checked draft picks here yet. No.
Okay, so I mean, by the way I rank these teams, he's got one startable player, and that's one stud player, and that's Saquon Barkley. And beyond that, he's got at least an up and coming Chase Claypool. he doesn't have two quarterbacks, really. I mean, only three on the roster, and he's got some pieces and parts that look like they could be either moving up a lot this year or falling off entirely. There's a couple of players that I guess people are unsold on right now and haven't decided whether they're good or bad, and we will find that out probably this season. Somebody like Henry Ruggs and probably even Denzel Mims. Zach Moss is mostly a question mark. I think it's the right team. I am. Okay. Just making sure here. But yeah, and then he's got like a player like AJ Green who just has to not be on this roster anymore.
So I think, the highest on this team in terms of the rankings, just because the team needs to blow itself up. I think that's kind of clear. This is the next team in Serie A that's rebuilding. And you hit most of those points. One starting QB. You've got a number of aging assets that would benefit when now teams that are kind of lost on this team. But at the same time, it's like, okay, I've got Saquon, I've got Lenny Lombardi, I've got Zach Moss, I've got Chase Claypool, Corey Davis has looked good this preseason, AJ Green, Denzel Mims, Henry Ruggs, Harrison Bryant, Gerald Everett, Adam Troutman, who escaped his major injury. And it's kind of like, this could be again, with some luck, this could be a mid-table team. And in a lot of divisions, this could be a mid-table team. But that said, because of the fundamental, lacking pieces of this long term, we're going to recommend a rebuild. But you could see a situation where he says, you know what, to hell with your rankings, flips Saquon for, I don't know, Joe Mixon and Ben Roethlisberger. Again, I don't know if I would do that deal or anything like that. I'm just throwing something out there to give him a second quarterback and a less prominent starting running back, and decides, I'm going to see if I can qualify for something. Maybe I stay in Europa. Maybe I stay in, anything. But you could absolutely make a move like that and say, to hell with it. I'm going to try and keep myself in the conversation. Or he takes Saquon, he takes Lenny, he takes Moss, he takes AJ Green, he takes, Jared Goff, and says, give me 6 first-round picks.
Yep. And that's, he's looking like the roster is set up to be able to do something like that, or to accumulate maybe even a pair of Cam Akers and Travis Etienne, and pull some things from teams that need help or need a lift for this year, and really change this roster going forward.
Right. All right. Any additional thoughts before we move on to the next piece here?
No, not on this roster. I will say that this team and the team that we had ranked next, we were right next to each other, 5 points apart in my rankings, and they were very clearly the bottom two teams in this conference.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think with one exception, these were the two teams that kind of everybody had as well. Actually, no, I wasn't. I had Parma a little bit higher, but I did double check, and it wasn't Parma Calcio, it was Piedmont Calcio. So,
that's completely different.
Yeah, obviously, but again, it was a fun story regardless. I think we'll keep that in there. It's fun content, and we'll make sure everyone watches enough to either correct me or realize I'm correcting myself.
And maybe Parma can petition the commissioner to change his team name.
I mean, I would want to be Piedmont Calcio. Like hell, I wouldn't mind being the team that was confused with Udinese. I'm sorry, with Juventus.
I see how you think of yourself.
Freudian slip there. I promise.
Yeah, it could have been. Could have said anything.
So this would have been a really good transition if I was actually, doing my job well, but I did not, unfortunately. But here we are. We're going to go ahead and talk about Juventus next.
No. I don't think that's the next team. It is. I'm sorry. Yeah. Yep. I'm looking at different set. I'm looking at my rankings, not the overall.
You're not looking at the composite rankings, which we're
Yep,
using
yep,
to order
yep.
this pod.
So, no, we're going by my rankings.
That's mighty selfish of you.
Yep.
Anyways.
Okay. So yes, Juve.
So yeah, Juventus, another one of the teams that was in full rebuild last year, and it shows since he's got two high-profile young quarterbacks, two high-profile young running backs. Unfortunately, one who can't walk right now. Jamar Chase is kind of the top target at receiver, and Jalen Waddle, and then a host of tight end options. So definitely a team that's, I think, similar to how people ranked my team last year, although I had a lot more rookie depth than this. Joe is really hammering down on making sure he got the top of the draft rookie quality from this class. So now it's just a matter of sorting through it to see who hits, who doesn't, and what does this team look like next year when he's ready to start making a push and putting some things in there.
Well, the really interesting thing to me is that he does not have any of his draft picks left. He also traded his 2022s away as he was wheeling and dealing in our rookie draft. So he is looking to make that move this season. This is a roster that we have generally ranked very poorly in terms of but very I guess better in terms of dynasty than we would in a 1 year redraft kind of thing. But he needs these guys to hit on their potential right out of the gate.
Right, and I think that's one of the things that I learned is I looked at my team coming out of the draft last year, and I'm like, oh my god, I am the dynasty darling. Like, I am the number one dynasty scorer on everybody's list. Everyone bowed down to me, and I think I finished 8th in the division. So it's kind of like, hey, expecting yourself to be immediately, making that jump is a poor assumption. That said, if Juventus finishes 8th in Serie A, then that's probably going to be a top 20 pick. So kind of equivalent of say the 106 or better. That might not be bad versus what he got for the value of that pick at the time he traded it. I don't have the deal in front of me, but yeah, I think this is really fun. This could be a fun team to watch. Especially as it kind of pulls itself together and continues to evolve. Needs more running backs, obviously. Does he wait for the 22 class, or does he start trying to parlay some of those receivers into running backs to try and do something this year? When does Fields take over the starting job in Chicago? Lawrence has been named the starter in Jacksonville. When does this team start going from a 70-point scorer to a 90-point scorer to a 100-point scorer?
Yeah, and it's going to need those receivers to come into their own, and he's going to have to move Etienne to get a player that he can use this season. But he should be able to get plenty of different players, different options. But without well, he's also got Najee Harris, so he at least has one running back that he can start and get some pretty good production out of. He needs Justin Fields to be a starter, and that's probably not going to happen until about week 4. Until then, he may be having a poor beginning to this season.
Right, and I think that's one of those things that I'm not sure if I buy into the coach speak or not. But again, Dalton has been named the starter. It's a question of how long does he get to be the starter there if the owners come to Nagy and the GMs and say start winning, or we're going to find someone else who does. Right? You don't trade your first next year if you don't have some level of confidence in keeping your job. Or that being said, hey, it works for Kansas City. They went all in to try, and not Kansas City, not the Chiefs, the Royals. I'm talking about a couple years back, where they're basically saying, hey, we're going to lose our jobs. Let's throw all of our future assets at a chance to make a run for the title. It worked, and they kept their jobs, and then they sucked again. So they're now just finally rounding out from there. So who knows? We could be seeing the Bears doing something similar.
Yeah, this would be one of the teams that he was like a year behind what you and I did in this league, where we loaded up on future draft picks and used those in last year's league to try and set things up for our rosters going forward. He's going to have another fun team come if it doesn't happen this year, it will be next year or maybe 2023. But he is going to be one of the players to contend with here.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to talk about the the 10th ranked team. That would be Genoa. So definitely got some good news today that he's got a third quarterback because Teddy has won the Denver starting job. He's got Antonio Gibson and not a whole lot of other pieces at the running back position. Not a lot to, yell and scream about at the receiver position. I do love me some Rashad Bateman, but not as a receiver one this year. And then Gronk at tight end. So Gibson, really strong quarterbacks, a lot of stuff that needs to get figured out.
Yeah. So, I have this team. I need to go back to this spot in my spreadsheet. I have this team. He's set at a couple of different places, and he could be really set at quarterback if all three of those guys, maintain the levels that we expect out of them. At least competency from Bridgewater. We want to see Baker be around that fringe quarterback one range. Just he's probably not going to be a whole lot more than that due to his offense construction. But with those three guys, he can be playing matchups every week as long as Teddy's still the starter, and that gives him probably two solid quarterbacks most weeks of the season.
Mm-hmm.
If Bateman and Collins can make a difference for him, this is a team that will do some things here and there. He's got like the smorgasbord of late round tight ends on that roster as well. You hope OJ Howard finally gets the call, but I mean he's rostering all three of the Tampa Bay tight ends right now.
I mean, there are worse strategies.
If this was best ball, I would love it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's my thing. I actually have this team. We talked about Parma first. I actually have this team ranked ahead. I have Genoa, believe ranked behind. No, I don't. But I should have this team ranked behind Parma, in my opinion, because Parma, I think, is a more balanced roster than this. This is literally you have running back, you have one good running back, you've got some good youth at the receiver position, and you've got quarterback figured out, and then everything else is like
everything else.
I don't know what's going on. But like I said, this is one of the fun things about trying to evaluate Serie A this year. This is another team that if you saw him try and get rid of Baker and Russ, clear out his quarterbacks to people who need them, clear out Gronk, and then say, okay, build. Like, okay, if I offered Russ Wilson for Zach Wilson, Baker Mayfield for Baker and Teddy, see if that can pull me a Fields or a Mac Jones or something like that again.
Yep.
I'm not saying these are deals I would make or these equivalent value. Just you get the concept. And
he's already stacked up 3 first-round picks for next year. So this is clearly a team that is using the rebuild idea. Maybe more of a productive struggle, depending on what he ends up doing with these quarterbacks. But yeah, he's going to be putting up a baseline number of points every week.
Well, that's the thing is he's going to score himself out of the top 5 or top 10 if he's not careful.
And he's not going to win anything. So there's not really any point in accumulating those points this season.
Exactly. So you're not going to win anything. You're not going to qualify for Europa with this team. So literally just start trading things. In fact, I might send some offers for a couple of these players while we're on the podcast here.
Yep. Yeah, I don't blame you. If I had the ability to multitask with more than one screen, I totally would be doing something off on the side, but I can barely keep track of everything that we're talking about.
I would, but see, that's why I'm sharing my browser here so that I don't get myself into too much trouble. All right, going on to number 9. Wow, and this is one that I had a wildly different rank than everybody else here. So this will be fun to talk about here. That's kind of the fun thing about Serie A. And I said the fun thing about Serie A. If we're playing a drinking game, every time I say that, everyone here is going to be shit-faced. But that being said, the fun thing about Serie A is the range that we have everybody on here. So I have this next team ranked 5th in my rankings. The composite ranking is 9th. The lowest rank is 10th, and a lot of people have this team ranked 10th. So that being said, a pretty wide ranging of opinions, or, I don't know, maybe I'm just on something and have this team much better off than they should be. But with the 9th composite rank, we have Atalanta.
Yeah, and this is one of those times when I wish we had Donnie here to kind of defend himself, talk about his team a little, maybe give us an idea of where he thinks it's going and what he's trying to do going forward. But I had him in a tier of basically 5 teams that all were within 5 points of each other, and in that tier he's 4th of the 5 teams. So he could be as high as, was it like 6th, 7th overall, in 6th in the division, and that would be right pretty well where you have him. I mean, it's really only one arbitrary number in my stupid scoring system that made the difference in that.
And here's the thing that gets me about this is I can see how you can say this team doesn't have it. Receiver is not as strong as other groups, and tight end, he needs to add something. But quarterback position, he's got Jalen, Ben, and Tua, 3 starters. And Heineke is a Fitzmagic explosion away from taking the job. And he showed in the playoffs last year when he took Tom Brady and the Bucs to the wire.
Right.
In fact, probably the closest to the Bucs were to getting knocked out of the playoffs was against Washington. And that was Taylor Heineke. So the man can play. So he's in good shape at the quarterback position. His running back position is Jonathan Taylor, Miles Sanders, and Darrell Henderson. Now, Henderson took a hit with the Michelle trade and the thumb injury. That said, for your 3rd running back, it's not a bad position to be in. And then he still has Darius Slayton, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Kenny Golladay. This is not a bad team. This is not a bottom 4 team in the conference, if you ask me. They are a tight end away from being in the Champions League conversation, but definitely they're in the thick of the Europa League conversation.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be, it really depends on, if you want to use the cliche, in-season management to determine whether this team is going to be competing with the top of the division or just shit luck and stuck at the bottom all season long because couldn't choose the right starter that week.
And let's be honest, he's got on his taxi squad Quinn Ewers, who is enrolling at Ohio State early.
So is that kid?
Yeah, so that he's the number 1 quarterback, I think, in the 21 class, who's enrolling at Ohio State early so that he can get access to the self-promotion money, which means the clock is starting on that player on being able to declare for the draft. So instead of having to wait an extra year on Ewers, he can start it, in 3 years from now, Ewers is going to be draft eligible. So that's going to help him. And if he needs to get a tight end, Ewers probably gets you anything but a top 3 or 4 tight end straight up. So,
yep. To people who understand what he is and can wait that long, absolutely, he's got that value.
Yeah, and again, I'm not going to pull up Chase's team, for example, but he's Debbie crazy, and there's a couple other teams that are Debbie crazy. Hell, I might even take a shot at him because I like having the Debbie part of my roster building out because I'm also a trade maniac. With that said, he uses him, adds a reasonable tight end piece to the backside of this roster, and I don't want to play this team. This team's going to be drawing and upsetting people all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's where kind of the week-to-week fluctuation is going to come into play. He's going to absolutely blow some teams out this season, and he's going to get killed as well. And like you say, in between there, he's going to be putting draws up on some of the teams in this conference that they probably had chalked up to wins. Looking at the that week on their own side.
Yep. All right. So moving on to the next team, which was the composite eighth ranked team. And this is another one that, guess what? I'm on one side versus everybody else. Everyone else seemed to have this team as a, top 7 team. I had them 10th. Actually, I think I had them 11th. Let me look. Yeah, I had them 11th. We're talking about Inter. So, again, I'm going to go first here, but Fred, I need you to talk me off the ledge here. Like, we're talking about Russ Wilson and Cam Newton, who it seems like the Pats are all but willing to say that Mac Jones is going to be the starter and Cam go pound sand. Joe Mixon is the only reasonable running back option that I see on here. Everyone else is depth or otherwise. Receiver is solid. He's got Terrace Marshall. He's got Justin Jefferson. He's got Stephon Diggs. He's got Fant, and he's got Jared Cook. But I count one tenable quarterback. I count one tenable running back. I count 2, maybe 3. Jarvis Landry. So 4 good receivers and then a couple of good tight ends. So this is a team that can form a good starting lineup.
Yep.
But if he doesn't blow it up now, he's not going to be able to be in a position next year to get what he needs for it. Like, he should be dropping offers to everybody who's going to listen to blow this up. And that team is not a Europa team to me. This is not a Europa team, especially considering the last team that we talked about. People were saying were 2 or 3 ranks lower than this. So, Fred, talk me off a ledge here.
So you want me to tell you that this team is better than you think it is? It's borderline mid-table. My scoring system, I have him 7th, but again, he's in that tier of 5 teams that are just a point, 5 points apart, one player apart. So yeah, he's got a great starting. He's got a very good starting lineup for a bad team. Let's put it that way. And he's got players that he's going to be able to hold on to and use off and on all season long as they flare up and have their spikes. So when I don't know, I'm counting a player like Cam Newton and a player like Gus Edwards and a player like, I guess, even Jarvis Landry, which I guess will be in his starting lineup, but I see him as those as depth more than guys you want to rely on every week. So yeah, he's thin. He's thin after that starting group, but the top of that starting group, Russell Wilson, Stephon Diggs, Justin Jefferson, those are absolute studs at their positions, and that's what's going to keep him competitive and beating some teams. When Diggs and Jefferson go off.
I mean, look, go offer Stephon Diggs to Jamar Chase owner who's got a chance to compete. Go offer Russ Wilson and get yourself one of these top 3 or 4 quarterbacks from this class. Go offer Joe Mixon for Travis Etienne. Noah Fant for to the team we were just talking about, and round yourself out, get yourself queued up for next year. Like, it's a team that I think we agree can fight for mid-table. But if things go sideways this year, if Newton loses his job, if Cincinnati's like, all right, Joe, enough is enough, we're taking a running back next year.
Mm-hmm. They probably are, no matter what.
Yeah. Fant, again, this is the year he needs to make the leap. If he doesn't make the leap, I think people are going to start losing faith there. Like, there's a lot of risk on a lot of these assets where it's now is the time to sell. So it's, you either need to say, I'm good at being a mid-table team and seeing where this takes me, or it's a fire.
And it's a weird roster construction because he has some vets as well, which are going to score him points, but they're not really going to help him in the longer term. A guy like Marvin Jones, what's he doing on this team? You could even argue Gus Edwards should be traded away because he doesn't want that potential point every week when he has a massive 5 yards and 3 touchdowns kind of game.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't disagree. Anyways, that being said, I'm tired of being the controversial one, Fred. I think it's your turn.
All right, so who are we going to go for next?
So we're going to talk about this team. So let me count. 12,
Oh, I hate this team.
11, 10, 9, 8, 7. So you were the lowest on this team. And the highest was actually Eric ranked them 5th. So it's, again, too bad we don't have some more folks on here to talk about the ranks. But the, what did I say, 7th ranked team? Sure, we're going to go 7. Is
7 it is.
the one, the only, Fiorentina.
All right, so I should probably go first here and tell you why this team is bad.
That'd be good.
He's got 3 good players, three great players: Tom Brady, AJ Brown, and DK Metcalf. And beyond that, he's going to struggle to even make a lineup. He's got Brandon Ayuk. Okay, fine, starter. He's probably a solid wide receiver too.
You might want to scroll down a little bit.
Okay. I'm sorry. Thank you. That was off my screen. And for that reason, I'm thinking that I didn't rank this team correctly because I didn't notice George Kittle in my scoring system here.
Or Kyle Pitts or Robert Tonyan in the tight end premium league.
It's barely tight end premium, in my opinion. But
Fair.
But yes, Pitts is going to score at least at the wide receiver 3 level and probably wide receiver 2. George Kittle is, a man amongst boys. And if Tanyan gets the touchdown share that he had last season, he's going to be, top 5, top 6 tight end this year, and maybe even higher than that if all goes well. So yeah, seeing those options at the end of his bench it changed my rank on this significantly. He's probably at worst he's in the next tier up. So let me see where he would have ranked in my scoring system with that. It would have been 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 4th or 5th overall.
Right. And then you've got Trey Lance.
My bad.
Is a rookie and everything there. So again, maybe things may move a little bit after this, but that said, I think we're in the realm of the ranks where we're going to see some really solid teams, but there's a major gaping hole on each of these teams. In this case, it's a running back position. He's starting Tony Pollard, or Latavius Murray. The rest of this team is pretty solid. You've got Tom Brady. At some point, he's going to get his reinforcements in Trey Lance. Davis Mills might actually start a couple of games this year. And then 3 or 4 solid receivers and 3 or 4 solid tight end. So as long as you have Tom Brady and then a serviceable running back, this is a team that could be Europa bound.
Yep.
That said, do you want to be Europa bound? You want to be Champions bound? I think you want to be Champions bound. So obviously he's going to wait on Lance. I don't think it's a team that can or should blow it up. But again, I could see him saying, I'm going to give it one more year, see what I can get for Tom, and then go from there. But I could also see him saying, let me take one of these receivers, turn it into a running back, and see where I land this year. And that would be a not so fun team to face in Serie A. So that's the bad thing about being a podcaster and this kind of stuff. I'm throwing ideas out there, at which point they might say, great, thanks very much. I appreciate you giving me ideas to beat you, and thank you for helping me win your money.
Look at the way my team is set up and how badly it compares to yours. Why aren't you doing this?
Exactly. Why are you not making yourself more competitive against me? I don't understand.
Yep. And so, yeah, I mean, he's got an entire stable full of, unless this is old data, a stable of running backs who are like an inch away from being a starter. And if and when that happens, those guys are going to be putting up points all over the place. But the way this team is really constructed, they may be worth more to him in trade value than they are to his actual roster.
Right. So I think he needs to get himself a no shit starter And then when the injuries start piling up, he's going to be in a dealer's position here. So I could. It wouldn't shock me if you tried to move Brady and say, I'm going to punt for one more year and see where I am sitting next year. It also wouldn't shock me to see him move one of these receivers and say, to hell with it, let's go.
Yeah, if he can, if like you said, if he turns one of those receivers or some of that depth into a running back to actually, be a starter on somebody's team, that would be a huge win right there.
All right, so again, here's another one where I wish we had more folks on the pod. Again, we're going to play the drinking game, so everyone drink for that. But Eric had this team ranked 10th. Most of the rest of us had them pretty well clustered in the Europa range. But it's fun to talk about AC Milan.
Yeah, and I think you were one of the again the lower of the rankings. He was at the top of the tier for you, but that tier is lower than where anyone else had him.
Right, and my view on this team is it's a team that can put a good enough starting line together at the beginning of the season to cause problems. Like Dalton's going to be the starter in Chicago with Roethlisberger and Ryan. Alston Eckler, Joe Mixon, and then
he still has Teddy too.
And Teddy, you're correct. So he's got 4 quarterbacks who are going to start the season. He's got 2 to 3 running backs who are going to start the season. He's got Nuke, Curtis Samuel, and Allen Robinson, and then Tyler Higbee. So if you're putting together a starting lineup from this team, his starting lineup is going to score points. As soon as he loses a player, the replacement is not going to be good news. If he loses, say, Allen Robinson, he's plugging in Rashard Higgins.
Yeah, his running back depth is pretty bad as well. If anything happens to Joe Mixon or Zach Moss isn't what people want him to turn into, then he's going to be hurting there. I mean, he's got Eckler, and Eckler should be fantastic this year with that team and that offense. But there's, like you say, a very interesting starting lineup to start the season. And it's the kind of starting lineup that looks like it's just going to fall apart due to attrition.
Right. It's when you look at this team, hold your breath because it's a house of cards that can fall over at any minute. But hey, he's still got Jeremy McNichols.
Oh, well, so he's got that going for him,
which is nice.
He does have an extra first-round pick for next season as well, so he's got a little bit of firepower. He's already paid for next season because he's traded away one of his picks. So he's got, a stable, 2 first and a second that he can move to do some things with during the season.
All right, so move on to the next one here. And how about you go first on this one because you actually had this team ranked highest of any of the rankers. I think most of us had them in kind of the 6 to 8 range, but you had them, I think, up to 4th. So we're, of course, talking about the one, the only, everyone's favorite breakfast mate, ham.
I do like ham, and ham too. So this is a team that when I was doing these rankings, I was still fairly convinced that Deshaun Watson would miss 4 games or less this season. So I put him down as one of his key players and key pieces that was going to be productive for him, and that's a big reason why he's ranked as high as he is. But he's still got, even without Watson, okay, you don't really have any other quarterback. He's got Eckler and Gibson, he's got Terry McLaurin, he's got Adam Thielen. Those are both probably looking at 10 touchdown seasons. Eckler and Gibson are top half ish, or at least top 10 range of outcomes for their running back seasons. He's got Damien Harris, which is looking a lot better today than he did yesterday. Again, there's not a whole lot going on behind this starting lineup, and without Deshaun Watson, you're going to have to kind of squint to put the starting lineup together. But maybe even more of a house of cards than the last team.
So again, I think this is one of those that the Europa tier of Serie A is teams that have their shit together, but have one major hole. And for me, that's tight end here. I don't love Hayden Hurst, especially with Kyle Pitts in town. Johnny Smith is in a committee, and Austin Hooper is in a committee. So I don't think any of his tight ends you feel good starting on a week-to-week basis. Every other position, you're 2 or 3 deep. Again, a lot's going to matter what happens with Watson. But, hey, if I've got to start Patrick Mahomes by himself and play a running back in my flex for a couple of weeks, they're worse positions to be in. That being said, until he does something about that tight end spot, I think he's going to have some tough times. But, again, he's got pieces to be able to work with. Elijah Moore, his depth, his supposedly crushing everybody in camp. I'm sure he can flip that for a top 10 tight end if he needs to. Like you said, Damien Harris is a brand that has improved over the last 24 hours. Whether that maintains over the third preseason game and into the season, we'll see. But again, if he needed to drop some depth to keep himself afloat to stay in the Champions League conversation, he has the ability to do that. But he just desperately needs to add a tight end that of consequence before we can really take him seriously in that Champions League conversation, if it's me.
So just based on some of the other teams that we've looked at today that we've determined should be selling, is he making a move for Tua or Hurts? Maybe even a Tom Brady? Using his Watson piece as a trade chip to get a quarterback that's going to be solid, end of bottom of the tier quarterback one, or even maybe with some upside, to make this team viable, I guess, as a competitor.
Right. I mean, I would probably be trying to move. See who would be a good. Obviously, trying to get Fant from Inter Milan, I think would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I don't worry so much about his tight ends, because if you don't have one of the top 5, it almost doesn't matter. You're just chasing a touchdown that week. So there's very few options that you can count on. I mean, maybe that, like you said, the top 10 tight end, one of those guys that are in the 7 to 8, 9, 10 range. They're maybe slightly more reliable than the pure touchdown options, but
Yeah, again, it's kind of like a Fiorentina. Can I get Brady and a tight end? Genoa, can I get Baker, Gronk for Deshaun Watson, something like that. I don't know. I think this is definitely a team that can and will be a buyer. Just a matter of what that buying ends up looking like.
Yeah, and he's also has begun to trade away his 2022 picks, but he still has his first and second round left. So he's got ammunition in the hopper that he can use here.
I need to correct Luigi here. And then 6th. Luigi's trying to come with a hot take here. It's like, I fourth. No, I've got the list here. Sorry, Luigi, you had him 6th.
Yeah, unless I screwed something up here.
Either that or you took over Luigi's rankings just because you like them better. And I wouldn't fault you for that. There have been less shady things that have happened in this league.
It's entirely possible that I switched our names.
That said, let's talk about a 4th ranked team here that I ranked 4th. But Rate My League on July 27th is not a fan of this team. They can't exactly speak for themselves because they're a ranking service, and that comes with its own drawbacks. But lo and behold, we have Napoli. Fred, while you actually pull this team up, why don't you go ahead and talk about what you think?
All right. Let me just find my tab here. This is a team that I had, the next tier up from the bulk of the league, but near the bottom of that tier. It's debatable whether my tiering is any use at all. But I like Aaron Rodgers this season specifically. Baker Mayfield is a fantastic super flex, second quarterback. Tyreek Hill and Terry McLaurin, Jerry Jeudy, DJ Moore. His worries about wide receiver are null and void. But his real problem, like you have stated for everyone else, he's got a real hole at the running back position. He's got guys who you can only hope will be good the weeks that you have to put them in the lineup. But I don't think he has anybody here that he can count on going into the week, even week one, who will carry the load for him. Tight end is usable. OJ Howard, Dallas Goedert. So even maybe Dawson Knox. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, he's got Goddard, he's got Knox, he's got Howard there. And if anything's happened to Troutman, Juwan Johnson seems to be moving into that position there. The receiving position looking great. Rodgers and Mayfield, nice 1-2 punch at the quarterback position. Running backs the whole. So again, it's can you use a Jeudy or McLaurin or something like that to fill that in? I think Robbie Anderson, who just got extended, is an underrated option at that wide receiver position. Who knows how good and how well Sam Darnold's going to feed those receivers, but they seem to believe in him. I think they extended him to the tune of $15 million per year for the next couple of years. So the depth is at receiver. The hole is at running back. If you lose a wide receiver for a running back, this team is firmly in the Champions League conversation. So nobody do that. Nobody give this team a running back.
Why would they want to do that to harm you?
I can't think of any reason. But all right, let me see. Taxi. Oh, and also, yeah. Speaking of running back, Travion Henderson, a five-star running back. I think maybe the RB1 of his class. That's I think going into his true freshman year this year at Ohio State. So help is coming, or help could be turned into with a guy like a prospect like Henderson.
Yeah, that's a big piece that he could flip for some help.
Yeah, absolutely. So
long time to wait though.
We need to stop talking about this team. This is going to be the part of the podcast that I start getting nervous about some of the other teams in the division that could very well, take my lunch money. So,
yeah, I think any of the top four have a real serious shot at it.
Yep. All right. Well, we'll talk about this next team, and I think there was a pretty good consensus. Napoli did have some detractors that had them falling outside the top four, but the top three teams, basically, everyone ranked them in the 1 through 4 range, mostly in the 1 through 3 range. It was pretty well consensus. Third-ranked team has probably been at the top of the division the last couple of years, but again, as tends to happen with this owner's teams, they've gotten a little bit older. As they get a little bit older, it's a little bit tougher for a team like this to rebuild because, frankly, he doesn't have to do it that often. But that said, he's gotten his money's worth out of the team so far and should stay in the Champions League conversation for next year. And that is Sassuolo.
I like this team. I like the way he's constructed it. But like you say, it may not be set up for long-term success. He's definitely got a few years left, but it's one of those questions. Do you sell a year too early, or do you then wait and sit on things that nobody will ever want to take from you at what they're really worth? Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz, fine pair of superflex quarterbacks. He's got great running backs in Chubb and Jones, and again. Just due to the nature of the position, you wonder if those are run them until they're dead kind of running backs, or does he move them to try and go back to some youth going forward? Same thing with Keenan Allen. I think that guy has been toxic for a couple of years already. If you own him, you basically just take the points because he's never going to give you back in trade what you can get for him on the field, and the stud points that he gives you every single week that no one else wants to pay for. But yeah, he's got just a awesome wide receiver core. Keenan Allen, Stephon Diggs, Brandon Cooks, Julio Jones, Tyler Lockett. He's going to be playing matchups and beating most teams almost every week with those 5 guys and those 2 running backs.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is once Wentz gets himself healthy, he's got 2 good quarterback options, 3 good running back options, and 5 good receiver options. Gesicki looking good at tight end, just looking another shot up there. Again, I think he adds the tight end, and he's a really, really dangerous team. But I agree with you. I think guys like Julio, guys like Keenan Allen, guys like Brandon Cooks are going to be receiver, 1 in the Allen case, but 2s and 3s in the Julio and Cooks case, that you're never going to get that kind of value back from them. So I guess, sure, I'll take a wide receiver 3 points with my my 5th or 6th wide receiver option. But yeah, this is definitely one of those teams that I don't see him rebuilding any of this. I think obviously he's got to keep trying to win because that's the way he does things. He doesn't exactly have the youth to try and turn over either. But that said, I think there's a lot of mainstays in the way that Jordan builds his teams on this. It's the Keenan Allens, the Julio Joneses, the Aaron Joneses that are kind of his trademarks that score a lot of points, and it's tough to get a lot of value back in trade. So, yeah, I think, like you said, he's going to be beating a lot of teams this year. He's going to be at the top of the table. But again, is he the top? Is he fighting for the top? I think there's a little bit more competition for him this year than there has been in year past.
Yeah, I like the top 2 teams that we're going to talk about a little bit more than I like his.
Yep. All right. So 2 teams left. We haven't talked about my team yet, and of course we've got Luigi's team, Roma. So one of us is getting the curse of the number 1 preseason rank, and the other will likely go on to win the table. So I hate to say it, but congratulations to Luigi for winning the league this year, because you have been pre-ranked 2nd. So while I bring up Roma's roster, do you want to talk a little bit about what do you think about his team? And did you have Roma as 1, or did you have them? I think you had them 1, right?
I did not. No, I had.
Okay. Maybe Eric who had them first, but
I was actually the only. The composite score, he ended up pretty high, but I was one of the only teams that had him as 2nd overall. So yeah, I think you and I had him as 2nd. Eric ranked him as 1st. He was not any lower than 3rd. Sorry. Except Luigi's own rankings, he put himself 4th. And he must just know how things are going to end up.
Exactly. Luigi's saying that he ranked Venezia 4th. No, he ranked yourself 4th.
So the silly thing here is that we think he's the composite 2nd best team in the division, but he's also got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Devies on his team, including Spencer Rattler.
Shit.
So he's you talk about having bullets to fire. He doesn't really have any of his draft picks left. He's only got 3rds and 4ths, but with all of these Devies, he is going to just be able to wheel and deal all season long to help him cover injuries, cover buys, cover what he needs to do to keep himself in it. And do you want to talk about the specifics of his roster, or you want me to go through them?
I mean, yeah, just the things that make me the most nervous are obviously his depth at quarterback. He's got good rookies on his team, but he is not in a position where he needs to rely on any of those rookies. With Dak and Jalen, he can start those guys until Fields hits the field, and then he's got a really nice quarterback rotation.
Right. That's going to be playing matchups. Once Fields hits the fields.
Then you get J.K. Dobbins and Chase Edmonds, and now Sony Michel being in a position of more relevance until Javonte Williams and Michael Carter kind of take their roles. Again, a situation where you're 3 deep, and you're going to get 2 guys in reinforcements later on in the year. Chris Godwin, who can carry the water for you with Emmanuel Sanders and Mike Williams up front. And then as LaVisca comes on, as Jarvis Landry continues to perform, as Gabriel Davis takes over that slot role in Buffalo, he gets stronger. So it's one of those things where from the jump, this is probably the second or third best team in Serie A. And then as the rookies step up and age into the roles that they can perform, his depth gets scarier. He's got the Devies to get scarier. He has the powder to go make that move, to go get Saquon Barkley from one of these lower teams, to go get Stephon Diggs from one of these lower teams, to basically say, okay, I don't have to give up all that much of the depth of youth on my team, and now I'm the team to beat in Serie A. So, I think this is a hell of a team, and he's going to be right there in the conversation all year. I think I've got the edge on him to start, but by midseason, I can see that conversation flipping pretty aggressively.
Yeah, and he's got that team build where just as injuries and bye weeks are hitting everyone else, he's going to have players hitting the field. With the rookies he's got, with the way it looks like rotations are going to shake down, he could be an absolute powerhouse come November.
Yeah, and again, this is one of those teams that isn't going anywhere because, like you said, Spencer Rattler's coming off his Debbie pile next year. So he is Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts, and Justin Fields, and he's going to add Rattler to that. Like, he's either going to have a disgusting quarterback room, or he's going to move one for an elite piece. And then it's going to be super scary and super young at the position. So, yeah, good times. I really like talking about this. Let me roster bait for 5 minutes to make myself feel better because I get the curse. I get to be the number 1 ranked preseason team in the power ranks for Serie A. Hooray. And all of the wonderful things that entails. Again, this is kind of the step forward for the, build from nothing approach that I took to start with here. But again, I'm feeling pretty good about it. Lamar Jackson and Matt Ryan as my quarterbacks. Anyone at running back, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, J.K. Dobbins, Damien Harris, Miles Sanders, DeAndre Swift. I had some bad luck with Cam Akers. I don't know why he's not on the IR yet. But
are you planning on moving him, or are you planning on holding on to him for now?
I don't think I can get what I should be able to get for him by moving him, so I'm probably going to hold him. People are basically saying right now if I can get the price is any first next year and move him, and that's not what I think he's worth, especially the way that Marlon Max came back. He's injured it early enough in the process that he could be in the hunt of it next year, and if he only has to overcome Sony Michel and Darrell Henderson, I'm feeling okay that he can do that. So I'm going to hold him unless I get the right offer for him, and especially since I have the depth to be able to withstand that. Speaking of depth, I'm having to recover from Michael Thomas, making a big trade there to add him before the preseason, and then Kurt Plowey, he gets injured and requests a trade, so that's pretty awesome. But I still have CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Ayuk, and then my big move of the offseason was to make sure I got Kyle Pitts from the draft. I'm a truther. I think he's going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread, and in a position, like you said, it's not a huge premium, but it is a tight end premium league, so I think he's definitely carrying the value there. So definitely got a scare with Allen Troutman going down in the preseason. He should be okay, but I'm probably going to need to add a tight end. I have the depth at my Debbie position to be able to probably add a decent one without going too crazy. But that being said, because of my running backs, because of Lamar and Matt Ryan, and because of depth, I'm probably the team to beat in Serie A right now.
Yeah, certainly. Going into the season, before everything breaks down for you the way it's intended to or it's destined to. But the only spot I see here that I would be looking to improve going forward is that Mike Thomas trade. You need a true wide receiver one. We think that's CeeDee Lamb, and maybe he'll get those numbers in Dallas this year, but it's still a pretty big split up for targets. Maybe they'll all be right up there. I don't know. But yeah, that's like the only thing I'm seeing here is the absolute alpha receiver that boat races a team by themselves one week.
Yep. So I definitely need to add that. But again, I think I have the pieces to be able to add that. So we'll see what ends up happening here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. With all the devies you have, if you do decide to move Akers, if you wanted to break down a different piece, you have the running back depth that you could trade like 5 of them and still be happy.
All right. Well, we've had our one viewer that's stuck with us throughout. Thank you very much. Any final closing thoughts on Serie A?
No, but I will say that these are a lot more fun when we have a couple more opinions expressed. So hopefully we can get someone else to join us next time.
Yeah, seriously. Maybe one of our commissioners, maybe getting Donnie or others back on here. I mean, it's good to have other people and other opinions on here because we listen to ourselves talk all the time, and it's not as much fun as hearing other opinions and why people think I'm wrong or why I'm not the best team in the league. And I like having that debate. I don't like patting myself on the back. I'm not that kind of ego.
Oh, you're not the best team in the league.
Well, good.
That's me.
Fred Achilles. All right. Well, again, just over an hour, so we got this done in about the right amount of time. So hopefully you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you next time. Have we figured out what league we're doing next?
It's just in order of the sheet. So the next one should be EPL.
Overtake. Good old Merry England. All right. We'll be back to talk about EPL next time. But in the meantime, everyone enjoy yourselves. Have a great rest of your week and fun weekend.